Virgil's formal invocation of the muse occurs in lines 8 through 11. There are 9 muses, each associated with a different field of creative inspiration, and Virgil doesn't say which one he's talking to. Neither did Homer, but it's generally assumed that Homer was addressing Calliope, the muse of epic poetry. As you can see from the image at the top of the screen, this assumption did not necessarily apply to Virgil. This is a mosaic from the 3rd century showing Virgil seated in between Clio and Melpomene, the muses of history and tragedy. Whoever made this mosaic was onto something. As I said, and as we'll see, one of Virgil's objectives in writing the Aeneid was to create a space for Roman history in the Homeric universe. And when we come to Book 4, the drama of Dido and Aeneas, we'll see that Greek tragedy is certainly part of the mix. But whichever muse he's talking to, he addresses her directly, just like Homer does. Musa mihi kausas memora. Musa's in the vocative case. He's talking to her. Memora's in the imperative mood. He's telling her what to do. And what he wants her to do is remind him of the reasons, kausas memora, why Juno put so many obstacles in front of Aeneas and the Trojans. This takes the form of an indirect question introduced 2 different ways. I'll spell out the question first and then come back to the problematic way that it's introduced. Essentially, Virgil wants the muse to explain why the queen of the gods, which is to say Juno, compelled a man who was notable for his piety, which is to say Aeneas, to do 2 things. And there are 2 complementary infinitives, each modified by tot. So, why the Queen of the Gods compelled a man notable for his piety to roll through so many misfortunes, and B, to approach ad ire so many labors. So those 2 clauses are exactly parallel, and they're both governed by the verb, which, this being Latin, comes after the complementary infinitive. Anyway, as a statement, and in the simplest possible terms, this goes: queen compelled man to do these 2 things. That's the core statement. The statement takes the form of a question. Why did the Queen of the Gods compel this man notable for his piety to roll through so many misfortunes and to approach so many labors? It's an indirect question, so it ends with a period and the verb is in the subjunctive. But the real problem is the way the question's introduced, because he doesn't use the word why. He asks the question, introduces it 2 different ways, using 2 different constructions. And we can take them both, we can ask it from both perspectives before we put them together. The first way involves an ablative absolute. With what ablative spirit, numen numinis, so numine is ablative, having been harmed, right? With what spirit, having been harmed, did the Queen of the Gods compel a man notable for his piety, blah, 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 blah. So you see it's asking, like, what spirit was offended that made the Queen of the Gods do this? Then there's an or, right, because that's what that suffix means. And the other way he asks the same question is suffering what? And that suffering describes Juno, right? So quidve dolens regina. Regina dolens what compelled the man? So what did she suffer that caused her to compel Aeneas to experience all these misfortunes and to approach all these labors? So it's a sort of double-headed question, right? But I think you can understand the core statement. Now, core statement is something that I'll talk about a lot in these lessons because we're jumping into the deep end with Virgil as far as Latin grammar and syntax goes, and so you want to be able to isolate those elements of a sentence that make it a sentence, without which it wouldn't be a sentence at all. In this case, those are regina impulerit virum, queen compelled man to roll and to approach. Now, we need all the information that goes with those to make it make any sense. But if you understand how those things hold together as a basic structure, then the rest of the information can be first attached to those elements and then reorganized in a more and more English-sounding translation, for lack of a better word. So, muse, remind me of the causes. What spirit was wounded? What did she suffer, the queen of the gods, that she compelled a man notable, marked with piety, to roll through so many misfortunes and to approach so many labors? Virgil's invocation ends with one more question. This is a direct question, as you can see from the question mark, and it's a yes or no question, as you can see from the suffix ne. There is no verb in this question, but it involves a construction that you know well if you've ever considered the blank at the top of your worksheet that says mihi nomen est. Mihi is what we call dative of the possessor. My name is, I possess the following name. This is the case for the animis caelestibus, the celestial spirits that we find here in the dative case. Celestial spirits possess such great angers. It's a yes or no question. So, do they? Do celestial spirits possess such great angers? Angers such as those displayed by Juno in causing poor Aeneas to roll through so many misfortunes and to approach so many labors. It's a philosophical question, and a rhetorical one in the sense that Virgil doesn't wait around for an answer, but simply launches into his explanation of Juno's anger with the Trojans. And as we'll see in the next video, this is where Clio, muse of Roman history, rears her ugly head. So we'll dive into that next time. There are no separate questions for this invocation. You've already dealt with these on that first worksheet. I'll send you the next worksheet before I send you the video over the next section of the poem.